So I've got my OCRA corpus loaded up on AntConc in the Word section, and if I just push the start, we'll just get the default output, and this tells us what are the most frequent words in the data set. So the, of, and, in, it's not a lot of surprises here. The top 10 or so words of any large corpus will be roughly the same. Perhaps of note, we have of higher than and or some others. That's an indication that this is very academic in register. We also see that were and was are more frequent than is, with were having 76,000 cases, was has 67,000, whereas is all the way down to 44,000. So yeah, there's a lot more past tense words in this database than present tense. So you should keep that in mind when you're searching verbs. Cells is our first word with content that sort of has a meaning all by itself. And we can tell this is true because we know the word, but also because of the data. We can see that cells has a similar frequency with these other words around it, but the range is much lower. So the range means how many articles does it appear in. So cells appears in over 1,000 articles, which tells us that about 2/3 of all of the articles in the data set uses the word cells. Interestingly, we see that there is actually one article that did not use the word the. I don't know how they wrote that, and I want to try to find which article that was, but that's a project for another date. If we just go through, we see there's kind of some noise, you might call it, because we have things like et al at high frequency. You can see things like fig, and you'll see s and c listed as words. If we double click it, we can see what this actually means, and it's giving us, supplementary data s, right? Figure s. If I change these sort functions one to the left, we can perhaps see another use of s. So we still get figure s. Okay, I thought it might show us the use as s for seconds. But you can find things like that. C, for example, is going to be degrees Celsius, and also, figure C, like figure B, and so on. Other than that, this list probably doesn't have a lot of use for us, although I do get a strange satisfaction of trying to read these words in a row as if they are sentences. I'll show a more useful method for this tool, I think, for trying to search for words that you kind of know exist, but you're not sure how many exist or what types exist. And I was asking myself the other day, how many types of omics are there? So I'm going to use the wildcard search to try to find omics. So for example, if I just type in omics and then push start, it's only going to give me back omics. I need to use a wildcard search. Wildcard means you can substitute an expression for a different meaning, and you can see what those meanings are if you go here to Settings, Global Settings, Searches, and here's your wildcard settings. Most of the time, the asterisk will give you what you need. It can be 0 or more characters if it's an asterisk. We don't have a wildcard search for 1 or 0, which I kind of would like. So I find myself mostly just using the asterisks, and I also use the or function quite a lot. So I think in this video, those are the only two that I'm going to use. So for example, if I want to get all of my omics, I can put an asterisk at the beginning of it, and then just hit enter, and I get all of the words that end with omics. And genomics at the top, proteomics, kind of what I might expect. However, I'm realizing that I'm missing out on the words that don't have an S at the end. So maybe I should try putting asterisks at the end as well and see what I get. Okay, well, we do get now proteomics and metabolomics, transcriptomics, which is nice. I want those. but it's unfortunately also giving me a lot more noise, like economically and omicron and some others. So this search term is not going to be so helpful for me. So what I will more likely do is just take those two that I got earlier and just use the OR function. So I'll just take omic and omics. Okay, now I'm a lot more happy with this list than the previous one. However, there's still a couple problems with this. And one is that I want to sort by range, first of all, because I'm generally a lot more interested in how many different papers it appears in, rather than just one or two papers talking about it a lot. And in fact, you can see some words have a fairly high frequency, but only occur in one article, like chromic, trisomic. I'm really not interested in those. So I'm going to put up my minimum range to 2, and we'll get a lot more clean data this way. So now we've got 44 hits. This is a lot more manageable. It still has things I don't want, like economic and socioeconomic, but this is a lot easier for me to clean. The way I clean it is I click here for select all, and then I do Control C for copy. I go over to Excel, Control V to get that onto here. And now this is sort of unnecessary, this part of speech and the head word. These are for more advanced metrics if you're using them. So I'm just going to delete these. By the way, you can delete this way on Excel by holding Control and Spacebar to select a column. Normalized frequency means how many hits per million. It's not interesting to me. To delete, I can hold Control and the minus button. Normalized range is nice, but what I like to do is do Control Shift down to select that column, and I change it to a percentage. Normalized range means how many different articles contains this word. Oops, I don't want this as a percentage. Now I can just go through and select the ones I don't want. So to select a row, I do Shift Spacebar and then Control minus to delete stuff I don't want. Taxonomic is kind of a border case. I don't think it's really in my group, but I will go through maybe a second time to take that. I don't want atomic or anatomic. So here I got to a case, there's a word called epitomics. I really don't know what that is, so I'm going to just take a look on here. I double click that. Oh, okay, it's a product from something, so I'm not very interested in that. Dysomic. Is dysomic anything? Dysomic inheritance from nature and evolutionary ecology. Duplicates return to dysomic inheritance in a cultural ancestor. Okay, there's something to Google later. We'll keep that on the list. Okay, nice. So now I have a list of 24 of the omics, and I could further refine this and mix it together if I wanted to, say, do a genomic and genomics. Just of note, if you want to be very careful and precise about your data collection, you have to make sure that genomic and genomics is searched together. You can't just add this range. You can add the frequency, but you can't add the range because probably some of the same papers use both words. So you would need to search these together to get the true range of them. So I'm pretty happy with my omics list, but now I'm also thinking, what about the ohm? Because there might be some things with ohm that I'm missing. So I'm going to see what I get with ohm and ohms. Ohm and ohms. What do I get? Sum, genome, outcome, outcomes. Okay, so if I really want to get words like transcriptome and proteasome, I will need to put in a little bit of work. Oh, phagosome. Right, so now we're seeing another issue is that there's two different kinds of omes on here. Chromosome is an older word, and genome was created as a metaphor with chromosome. So that's why genome has the ending ome. But really, chromosome means, the some on chromosome means soma. So if you are seeing something like an endosome, a ribosome, these are talking about a small body, whereas a proteome is a proteomics, something very large. So there's sort of a funny way that genomics has taken the word ome into a new territory compared to what it originally was, as something small like a ribosome. So if I really want to find this stuff, I'm going to have to first of all increase my page size to more than 100, because I have 146 hits here. So I have to increase this to 500, copy, paste this onto Excel, basically do the same thing again. Let me show you one more thing that you can do with the word. And this can happen when you know the word that you want, but you also know that there's some alternative spellings for the word. So one word that came to my mind is fetus and fetal. So I'm from America, so I'm likely to spell it as fetal and fetus. So I know how to search those words, but there's also British spelling. I don't know, maybe I'm not 100% sure about all the ways that people use this. And so I think to be safe, I'm just going to do a general wildcard search here. I'm going to put the asterisk here so I can have either an O or nothing. And then I know I can have fetal or fetus. I'll put just an asterisk at the end of T, and just to see what I get. So as expected, fetal and fetus comes right up. Oh yeah, fetuses, right? Sometimes you forget about the plural. There's the foetal, fetal in British English. Otherwise, not really anything we want. Oh, here we go, feto. So that's one that I wasn't thinking about at all, that I'm very happy to have found. There's fetus. We'll just highlight all the ones that we want. We want fetus. And I'm holding the control button as I click these to highlight all of them. Ooh, almost missed this one. Not missing anything else. Okay. Fetoprotein? Let's take it. Control C for control copy. Put that into here with control V. And now we just have to clean this up. Add in these. So now I'm just going to do shift arrow arrow for the highlight. Control C for the copy, Control arrow to jump, highlight this, and then Control V. Control arrow for jump with Shift to keep it highlighted, and then Control V. Okay, so once you get fast with this kind of typing, it really speeds up the process. And now I've got a tight search term that I can use in other tools to be able to use this. Okay, so of course I can see the range and the frequency. If that's interesting, it might be for some reason. But I have a feeling this search term, now that we know it's clean, is going to do more work in a different tab. So for example, like the cluster tab, one of the most useful tabs. I usually like to sort by range, and I tend to put the minimum range up to 2. And we might as well search term position on left and right, and let's see what we get. Okay, fetal bovine with fetal and fetal calf containing fetal. Okay, sure. Maybe we have enough data to put the cluster size to 3. So, unsurprising, a lot of this comes from the methods. I might be looking for ways to talk about fetal. Here we go, maternal and fetal. This is a nice phrase that occurs in many different articles from 10 different authors. And I might be able to see how they're using it. So right now the default sort is this way. It may actually help us to sort one to the left and see if we see any patterns. So improvement of maternal and fetal health, evaluation of expense. Oh, okay. So this might help give me ideas when I'm writing, if I'm going to write about the fetus, how I might approach this. Maternal and fetal growth and, okay, effects on fetal growth, importance for fetal growth and development comes a lot. Okay. Fetal and maternal. So interesting, earlier we had maternal and fetal, now we have fetal and maternal. Less common, but it might be interesting for me to sort of examine how these are different, which types of authors use them in different ways. That might turn out to be significant to me. The other one that I found was that nice feto-maternal. So that has actually turned out to give us a nice 4-word combo, the feto-maternal interface. Oh, that's kind of a cool phrase that I had never heard of before, but it's used by 4 different authors in especially Journal of Reproductive Immunity. Okay, well that's actually telling that this phrase occurs by 4 different authors, all in reproductive immunity, all from non-English speaking countries. So it doesn't mean that it's a wrong phrase, but it might indicate that it's a rather specific phrase for this type of a community. And other communities, for example, like if we went back to fetal and maternal, biological reproduction, veterinary research. So these are actually 2 from English-speaking countries, 2 from others. So we might see that maternal and fetal is possibly the more preferred term. So if I had been using a different term, this might have been one way for me to see what is more common. In the end, you need to make the decision about what style fits your paper and your community. But there is also the case that you need to change your word structure in the paper so that you don't repeat yourself too much, and this might be one way to find novel phrases for your key term. I'll leave it right there for now, and I'll show you in another video how to use the word tool to get search terms, for example, to put in the collocates tab.